because the roof is again leaking, the floor has again started peeling off, the furniture is again broken because there's a touch me not kind of phenomena that we see once as a corporate. If you have taken up in a school, as your responsibility, nobody seems to be sharing that responsibility, and which is where we realize that it's important for us to collaborate and reach out to people. And I'm happy to share that right now we are doing a program in Karnataka, especially in the poverty-stricken North Karnataka, where we have adopted about 200 schools, 5 corporates together. We are taking care of at least 105 out of those 200. So the remaining 95 are equally shared by 4 other corporates. The whole idea is that the program has been developed in close consultation and coordination with the state government. And I am happy to share that their inputs were really remarkable. Most of the schools in our country are many times opened without even realizing whether there is a supply or a demand gap there or not. So at the end of the day, with opening a number of schools with no resources available to have benches there, to have teachers there, and the actual attendance in those schools is extremely. You can actually try a hub and spoke model. We call it as a school transformation project, where they are amenable to this idea that you create a hub and spoke model so that one school gets fully strengthened. You have the right kind of teachers there, and the student teacher ratio is exactly the most optimal level, and then you can create mechanisms of transportation for children to come to that school and actually make the best utilization of resources in only one school, rather than splurging or rather spreading yourselves too thin by putting your resources for physical infrastructure at least into a large number of schools which may or may not be able to have that kind of a student strength to do justification to justify the pedagogical inputs. Because for a teacher also, my mother was a teacher, my aunt was a professor. I know if there are not sufficient students, if there are not engaging students, the teacher also is at a loss, doesn't feel too excited about the job. So I think, and the work has just begun, but I think the point is that it's a fresh thinking. That are we looking at infrastructure development and teacher capacity building and so forth for a large number of places, or are we trying to strategize at a specific number of locations to make sure that we deliver the best output here and then maybe scale up as and when it is required. So that's another approach which I think has been very exciting for us, and more so because the government has very forthcomingly come forward to work closely with us, and I think 5 or 6 corporates of us we are working. I think BMGF is also supporting it to some extent. uh, the third element which I wanted to touch upon today, very briefly, unfortunately I forgot my notes also to bring here, is that when you're talking about learning, and we always talk about at the early childhood education about the Bala method and all that. Uh, I still see, and we are trying to build upon it in our own places where we work with the large number of government schools, is that Bala also is not a passive concept. Just because you've painted the Anganwadis with alphabets and numbers, that's not sufficient enough. The Anganwadi teacher there should be in a position and should have that willingness. I still also remember that Mahabharata that willingness and that skill to actually make use of that painting on those walls to actually make it a fun learning atmosphere. It's not a tick box that you've painted the school in a nice fancy way and therefore now it's job well done. No, it does not. So the involvement of the teachers, and especially right from early childhood education, to make sure that they make the fundamental pillars strong enough for FLN as we are all talking of, I think that will predetermine how that child is going to perform over the years. Another concept which I have my personal reservation about is every time looking at education only from an earning point of view. I mean, even as research, when I look at people do talk about, and I keep on reading, so I came across they saying uh, it's a pure economic lens of looking at things, saying that $1 spent for a child for education translates to about $5 during his lifetime in terms of blah blah blah. A, the value accrual is happening during the entire lifetime. That too for $1, it is $5. Does it make any economic sense? Perhaps not. So education is not equal to earning potential. Can you define decide not to educate your child if you know that by education that child is not going to earn? Will you do so? Perhaps not. No consensus parent would ever do that. So education is not equal to earning potential. I think this thing has